Hi, everyone, and welcome to the continuation of our WTF, What's the Future with InBrace series. Today is a study club discussion around InBrace's superpower, specifically how InBrace can outperform other modalities. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and for your continued support. We have 2 study club sessions this week, one that obviously you're attending right now, and another one on Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, in case you want to cover some of these cases again and see additional cases from providers who are not on the lineup today. Our last study club, it was so amazing. We planned it for 60 minutes and we went over to about 2 hours. So we made these around 90 minutes total. We may end earlier, we may go a little bit over, but we've got 17 amazing cases to review with you today. Moderating this discussion, we have myself, Dr. Tara Poole, Director of Clinical, and Matt Wang, Head of Business Development and Strategy. As always, please feel free to use the chat feature to ask any questions throughout the case discussion so we can make sure to address them. You can send them privately through Q&A so we can ask on your behalf, and or raise your hand if you'd like to speak during one of our discussions. As mentioned, we're here today to talk about InBrace as a superpower. We've spoken a lot in the past from our marketing and our webinars about what's in it for the patients and consumers, but in 2024, we're going to dive deeper and talk about what's in it for you, as my colleagues, as orthodontists, and why it's in your best interest to treat more with InBrace. There's a lot of narratives and myths around lingual systems, built up scar tissue, and fear. And at times, InBrace can get bucketed in with that. And we live in a world right now where a lot of people and providers believe that InBrace can't do this or it can't do that. We want you to leave here today from the study club discussion thinking, man, InBrace can, and it's awesome. I didn't know that, but now I do, and I want to give it a go. Or, hey, if you've already started, I want to give more a go. So this is about celebrating our wins, and being an orthodontist myself, I get it. We need modalities that will fit seamlessly into our practice flow. Many of you on this call from the last 2 years know that our TIS teams have been in your offices literally chairside. And for those that aren't providers yet, we do have some perspectives on this call. If you speak with anyone on this call, any providers currently treating with InBrace, they will tell you that the TISs are in their office chairside to understand what's going on, to support them, and most importantly, to gather feedback so we, as a company, don't drink our own Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Sorry. We sought out to prove that InBrace won't be disruptive in terms of your chair time for other modalities. So we equipped our TISs with stopwatches and had them time appointments to make sure that we're truly efficient and not disruptive to your practice. You can see from our national averages listed here that we fit within the standard appointment times for check-ins, for fittings, for bondings. So outside of the myths or stigma that lingual orthodontics is going to be disruptive, as mentioned earlier, there's also the myth that InBrace has its limitations or you can't do this. We have providers treating AP corrections, extractions, severe deep bites, impacted canines, phase 1, all with InBrace. So in the spirit of not drinking our own Kool-Aid, we have our colleagues on today who have volunteered their time to come on and show you exactly what InBrace can do. Because when you ask WTF, what's the future, they say and believe that that is InBrace. They want to grow InBrace Nation. The perk is you can't see it, but InBrace should not be the best kept secret. So they want their peers, you, to start doing it. And if you're not, you're only holding yourself back from growing and from innovating. So this lineup that we have today consists of providers who have been a part of InBrace Nation from the start, who have helped us develop and grow, to newcomers to InBrace Nation who are seeing not only the treatment outcomes, but also the efficiencies that InBrace brings to their practice. So as I mentioned, this is a study club discussion. It's casual. Ask any and all questions that you may have. And let's kick it off with Dr. Daya.
Hey, Dr. Daya, how are you? Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Good. How are you?
Of course. You know, I'm still very intimidated by the medals behind you, that low-key flex. It's pretty crazy. No, but it's really good to meet you and ahead of this call. Dr. Daya, really quickly, just to kind of introduce yourself a little bit, your background, where are you based out of? How long have you been practicing? And how long have you been an InBrace provider?
Okay, so I'm Dr. Abelardo Daya. I live in Weston, Florida, very close to Miami. I'm a graduate from Nova Southeastern University from class of 2018. Been owning my practice for the past 2 years almost, and been a provider for the past almost 2 years as well.
Awesome. And how did you become an InBrace provider? What made you want to bring InBrace into your practice?
I have been interested on doing more like lingual braces cases, to be honest, but During residency, I was exposed to other modalities that I wasn't a fan of until I was talking with a friend. He's also provider, Dr. Yusuf. And he just kind of like guide me through what InBrace is, how to treat with InBrace, and I would just, I was a fan of it until when I started doing it. Then I saw like how good of a modality was.
Awesome. And you captured kind of like what the purpose and the objective of this study club is all about, and the purpose of this particular call is because, until you actually get your hands on it, you don't really understand how cool and how efficient, how effective InBrace really is. And so you kind of capture. So today that, this is an educational webinar, and hopefully that we can kind of share through some of the cases and things you've seen. First and foremost, we'll go ahead and start your first case here. Tara, if you want to pull it up. If we could talk, can you tell us a little bit about this patient? What was their, a little bit of just the basic bio, how old they are, what they do for work, maybe what school they go to, but what made them choose InBrace?
Okay, so he was a previous patient of the practice. Like I said, I brought into the practice, and the patient got treatment like 3 years ago. Okay. With labial braces. He is in high school. He plays baseball, and he wants to be like a professional. So he's like, I don't want braces again, but he didn't wear his retainers. You can even see his lingual retainer on the lower. But he wanted to be retreated. He didn't like his smile, and he's getting close to the graduation photos. So that was honestly the main reason why I chose InBrace. It was just convenient for him because he's a sport player, and because of the photos, like for graduation. I had patients with clear braces or with aligners that I had to remove brackets or remove attachments, so they can get the photos, then come back and replace them. So it was of course very convenient. And that was on terms of, what the patient wanted. For the treatment goals, of course, I wanted to improve his class 3 tendency, align his upper incisors, and of course, obtain a positive overbite and overjet.
And what was your motivation to treat this particular case with InBrace?
The first one was a patient. He was really on board. Again, mom, him, they were like 100% on it. I talked to about the good, the not so good, about getting used to the tongue position. Maybe starting with a little less at the beginning. But again, he was really on board of it. And second, I did want to see treating a little more of a complex case, having lingual braces, class 3 elastics incorporated, try all these different attachments that we can use for the patients. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is you want to talk us through this, his initial records real quickly? Okay,
so as you can see, the patient is a class 3 tendency, canine molar, edge-to-edge bite on the incisor on the 8 and 9, and the upper 2 is a little lingualized. Patient, of course, had some relapse from previous treatment, plus he grew a little more. We kept monitoring him just to make sure that growth was stable. But he has a nice profile, straight profile, nice smile. Overall, very mild overcrowding.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at that wow moment that we always talk about. Take us through what you see here. What were we able to accomplish at this point? How much time has passed from the initial record?
This point, I'm trying just kind of to think about the dates, but at this point, it was about 8 months during treatment. Patient was on the 3rd smart wire on the upper, 2nd on the lower. We had to stop class 3 elastics. You can see like the buttons on the upper 6s. He was doing first class 3 elastics with light elastics with a smart wire 1 and upper and lower. Then we switched to medium elastics, class 3. And at this point in time, we were on number 3 upper, 2 lower, and about to start triangle elastics to improve that settling of the bite.
Got it. So it was 8 months. How many times has this patient come in?
He had only one emergency. It was actually one of the buttons, not the braces at that time. So he was for bonding upper, lower, 2 wires, 3 appointments, 4 appointments.
That's really awesome. And were any
plus records of 5?
Yeah. Sorry. And were any auxiliaries used?
Just the buttons.
Just the buttons. And now
Yeah,
if you
buttons
were
and
to,
elastics.
yeah, and just
Hmm.
if you were to treat this case with traditional braces, how long would it have taken for you to achieve the results here?
Probably about 10 months to a year,
Mhm.
because I personally don't start with elastics so early. So would have
Mhm.
been first bonding the upper, try to get some torque on the upper, then add the lower arch, and then start with elastics. So it would have been a little longer, but for sure more appointments. I would have seen the patient at least every 6 weeks, just to make sure that I'm not losing control on getting onto a through a crossbite or something.
Right. So if you were to treat this, by the way, before I go into
Mhm.
that, what if you were to treat this, just to educate me here, if you were to treat this with traditional braces, would you need to use auxiliaries of any sort?
Probably no. Probably the same. Classic elastics.
Okay. And what will your wire
Yeah.
sequence be?
I start on the upper with a 012 night eye. On the lower, most likely with an 016. It was pretty straight. 012 upper, then 014, 016, 1625, then 1925 TMA.
Got it. So you're saving, compared to InBrace, you're saving like, instead of, I think I just counted 6 wires,
Yep, 6 wires.
versus 2 or 3, right?
Mhm.
And if this was a liner, just how long, first of all, would it have taken for you to get to where you are here?
I was around the same time, but most likely I would have seen the patient a little closer. Also because just to control those upper twos to make sure they're bringing forward. They are a nightmare sometimes with the liners, and I think a lot of us can agree to that. Like moving upper twos, rotating them with the liners is just a nightmare.
Mhm. Okay, great.
Not a big fan.
So yeah, I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Tara. Dr. Tara, any questions from your end regarding this first case?
No, not that one yet. We have some progression still and some finishes, so I'd love Dr. Daya to finish continuing to talk through the next progression and then the finish of this case where you ended up.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Daya.
Okay, so this patient was about a year, was on digital enhancement. We scanned for new upper lower wires. That was only the second emergency appointment. Patient broke like 5 brackets. That was the only time he misbehaved. But other than that, a good patient. At this point, I wanted to get a little more settling on the canine area and improve a little more the overjet. More than that, and just some mild rotations on the lower left 2, 3.
Okay. All right.
And that was the patient at debonding. Total time was 15 months. And if I'm not mistaken, there was 8 visits, including the 2 emergencies and the records.
Awesome. And
That's
what
awesome.
was your sort of wow moment or aha moment after treating this case?
It was just a convenience. Not seeing the patient so often. Again, this was a great patient, which I didn't. Apart from that one emergency visit, he was very cooperative. He liked it. He was like super happy with how the treatment progressed. To his friends were like coming to the practice just because of him not having later braces.
Right.
So in terms of practice management, it was great referral source, but at the same
Right.
time, the results were they were good.
Right. And this is why InBrace, we always say, is before to wow. It's not about the finish because, unlike, traditional modalities and everything else, we have to wait until the case is finished for the patient to be able to enjoy their smile, right? Like their teeth are literally behind bars. And so with InBrace, the beauty of it is that they get to enjoy their smile and they throughout the progression of treatment, but they don't have to wait until they're done. Right. And so that's
Correct.
one of the key benefits of InBrace for a patient. I'll kick it over to Dr. Tara.
Yeah, Dr. Daya, when you were outside of the clinical progression of the case, something too that our attendees can take away, when you were setting up the smile design and setting that case up from the start to end with success in mind, what did you take into consideration since you did use elastics and things of that nature? Did you overcorrect the vertical, for example, and how did you think about that as well as the elastic use?
Okay, so yes, I had to overcorrect the vertical. I wanted also to extrude a little the upper tree to improve his smile line. If you see from the initial, he has like 4 millimeters of incisor show. Here he shows a little more. So I overcorrected the vertical and anteriors. I wish I had done a little more, a little IPR, which I didn't do any, just to improve that vertical a little better. But other than that, just pretty much the recommendations of adding a little extra, like the compensation for the elastics. So for the class trees, adding some distal tip backs, or on the canines, just that mesial.
You mentioned the takeaway from that too, which you wish you would have done, is add some IPR. Is there any other specifics in this case now that you're looking back, especially with ortho, when we look at our past records, hindsight is 2020. Are there any other differences or learnings that you can take away from treating this case?
I think it's more of that. Just the IPR, probably I would have worked a little more on the settling on the canines. But other than that, I think it's a good result. Again, theta is straight, the overbite was corrected, good excursive movements, occlusion is good. So I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah, that, like, looking back, I would have been more into the settling and just some IPR.
Awesome. Love it. And it came out good. And the patient was happy, like you said, thrilled, told everyone around town. So that's awesome.
Dr. Dia, were there any other case for Dr. Dia today?
That was the one we had for him.
Thank you, Dr. Dia. We'll probably call you back up when some questions from the audience comes in. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dia. All right. This is Dr. Vani. Dr. Vani today, she's feeling a little under the weather, but she has the Mamba mentality. I'm a Kobe fan. And so, she's still insisted on being on this call. So thank you, Dr. Vani, for still, being on this call today, despite being under the weather. Dr. Vani, just a quick little background for those of you who don't know her. You probably have seen her. She's been a good friend of mine. She's been a great friend to the InBrace, and she'll share her story in just a second. But she's been really spearheading, showing off some cases on InGroup. So can't thank her enough for doing that. But without further ado, hi, Dr. Vani. Good morning.
Hi. So a little background. I actually met Matt, I think 3 weeks before we got closed down for COVID, ironically enough, in 2020 in Denver. And that was the first time I learned about InBrace. It took me a couple years to start doing it, but we kind of went in full steam as far as doing InBrace. And so InBrace, actually, I do more InBrace now, more than aligners, believe it or not. So that has kind of changed the way I practice. I grew up in Indonesia. I went to University of Oklahoma for my orthodontic training. So that's a little background about me.
Yeah, Dr. Vani, you touched upon something earlier that I just want you to expand on just really quickly. You said that you're, and I think you've also been posting this on InGroup. Again, unsolicited, not paid. This is Dr. Vani, entirely independent. But I know you've been posting that. You've been saying that, hey, I'm going to start doing more InBrace. I'm going to make my basically do more InBrace in my practice, kind of convert some of my aligner cases, if not all, to InBrace. Can you tell us a little bit, what is your motivation behind that? What is your why?
The why is it's patient compliance. And I just found that regardless how well you design the clean checks, and if the patient actually don't wear the aligners, then you end up going to this round and round, just doing more refinement. And and I spend a lot of time because I'm the only one that does the clean check in my practice. So I just found I spend a lot of time on the weekends, just sitting down on my Friday. So I have this routine every Friday morning. I have to sit down for 2-3 hours, and it just kind of got old because I really kind of start thinking, well, what's the purpose of doing aligner therapy if I have to spend, then rather than spend time in the clinic, I much rather just be 8 to 5 Monday to Thursday rather than the weekends. Then you have the homework. So I started looking into the to InBrace because there are some cases that I just know when patient choose to do aligners, that I just know there's going to be some problems as far as tracking issue, regardless how well you design the clean check. So that's the reason why the compliance issue, and then you end up being, you know, the treatment time gets longer and longer, and patient just basically stop wearing their aligners, or they got tired of it, or they just don't show up to their appointment. And then years later, it's like, oh yeah, I still have all the attachment on my teeth. Can I come in? And then you have to talk to them about converting them to a different treatment option. Then you're going to have to charge them more, and then they get upset at you. So I just kind of want to have an option that I can tell them, do this and you'll be in treatment in shorter period of time, rather than do aligners and then you're going to be in longer treatment time.
Right.
So after doing it all these years, I just kind of, not all the time, but I can tell which one that it's not going to be a good aligner patient, and just kind of like redirect them to a different option. In this case, it's InBrace.
And if I lived on a beautiful golf course, I would not, it would drive me crazy.
Oh.
Saturday golf course. So, well, hey, without further ado, we'll look at the first case here. You want to talk us through this case a little bit, Dr. Vani? Tell us a little bit about the patient, how old they are, what they do for work, what they do for a living. Why do they choose InBrace in the first place?
Okay, so this is Ariel. And Ariel, when I first saw her, she's about 18 years old. So, you know, an 18-year-old, for sure, they're not gonna pick traditional metal braces. And she actually came in thinking about doing aligner therapy. And I think anybody looking at this just kind of know that there is a potential issue on the upper right too, as far as aligner. If she doesn't wear this, if she doesn't wear the aligners really good, there's going to be a potential fitting issue as far as tracking. So then we discuss actually InBrace, and then, you know, of course we told them, okay, by the way, with aligner therapy, you're definitely gonna have some attachment. And in her case, definitely she will have attachment on the front teeth, especially in the upper right 2, upper right 3, you know, in order to actually move those teeth. So I basically told her it's not going to be completely clear. You know, you're going to have some attachment. In your case, it's going to be quite a bit, including the lower ones. So we discussed about InBrace. So she heard about InBrace from our practice, and that's what she picked. She's like, I'm in college. I don't think I can commit myself to wear 20 to 22 hours a day. So she picked InBrace.
Gotcha. And what was your motivation as a clinician? What was your motivation to treat this particular case with InBrace?
I know as a college student, I kind of know that she probably will not be a good aligner patient. And like I said, the tracking issues as far as on the upper, that's my motivation. And also for me, it's like, okay, it's quite a bit of crowding, and it's kind of like, it's a learning process because I started her treatment last year. And so I kind of redirect her into the InBrace, just because I want to see what we can achieve. And for me, the faster, the better, because with aligners, it's going to take, definitely, I mean, you can get there, but it's going to take longer, at least in my case. That's what I think for her.
Gotcha. Well, let's take a look at the first progress record that we have here. Take us through how much time had passed from the initial records?
This is actually, I'm not quite sure. Is this, I think the records that we took for her DE.
Mhm.
So she was in treatment roughly about 9 months.
Wow.
We started February of last year, and this is the record I believe we took in late November. So 9 months. And as you can see, I mean, it's quite a big progress, and I think we overcorrect the upper right too and extruded that a little bit more. So we're working on her DE right now
Okay.
to just kind of clean up a little bit of it. I have not gave her any rubber bands, so no elastics so far.
Right.
It's just purely the wires and
Right.
just kind of, yeah, maintaining.
But by looking at this image here, I mean, we always talk about it. There's a difference between when the patient's happy versus when the doctor's happy, right?
Yeah.
Doctors, I'm not a doctor, but we tend to be more meticulous about the little things and the minor millimeters. But by looking at this, I mean, I'm guessing here, this patient must be thrilled by her results. Am I right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And for us too, I mean, you know, every time they come in and we see the progress, it's just confirmed for us
Mhm.
how much we, you know, we absolutely love seeing the changes. And it's something that, you know, we continue, you know, to kind of work on the system a little bit better, because in the beginning I kind of babysit these cases a little bit more. I probably shouldn't see them more often.
Right. You're
So
learning.
for me, yeah, it's just kind of like, for me now it's like 10 to 12 weeks. We don't, you know, we don't think about that, about
Right.
like bringing them sooner is not going to do anything. You can't sometimes change the wire, so it's kind of just checking everything is, you know, nothing's broken and things like that. So our system has gotten better with it, you know, because we see how well these cases progress and you don't really have to babysit them.
That's right. You let the wire cook, right?
Yep.
So, I'm going to jump ahead really quickly because you were kind of touching on this. So we just pull that thread a little bit. Because you talked about like you probably weren't the most efficient with this particular case and so forth. But what was your takeaway? What did you learn after treating this case? Compared to, if you were to treat this with other modalities.
It's not so much one and done for me, this type of cases, you know, because the system for me, I still schedule smile design review because, you know, boy, I learned so much from
Right.
it. Like, for example, this case, we designed it to have a 4 millimeter of overbite, you know, and you can see that it just landed perfectly on about 1 millimeter.
Right.
So, you know, and basically for me, it's not so much just one sitting, but boy, think about the how much time you save as far as not babysitting the clean check, you know, because then she's gonna definitely need 2 refinements, and then that, if that goes well, for me, this is a time saver as far as my time, because I do spend enough time on it, but then I don't have to, you know, do it over and over again as far as try to do clean checks.
So how will the results of this case, encourage you to do more cases like this in the future with InBrace?
Oh, I mean, there's no question about it. You know, it's right now we convert more InBrace rather than aligner, just because you basically can give what the patient want, and they're not gonna get disappointed, because you know, they all said when they come in, oh yes, I will wear them 20 to 22 hours a day, but that's in reality, they don't, and then they get disappointed. They have paid you so much money and they didn't get the result that they want. I mean, with this, I can assure that they're gonna leave your practice happier.
Right.
I mean, happy, because they basically get what they wanted, you know, as far as results and treatment.
Awesome. And just for the audience members that's on the call today that are not InBrace providers yet, can you just talk really quickly about, like, I know you've mentioned it took you about 9 months to get to this point and you were learning along the way, so you weren't the most efficient, but would you have gotten these results in just 9 months if you were to treat this with classic braces or liners?
With classic braces, probably pretty close to it, because I actually use my practice is fully digital. So if she would have picked traditional treatment, then I would put her on light force, and you can definitely get the same, probably in the same time. However, you know, that's not what she wanted. She wanted invisible treatment, you know, something that, you know, it's not on the outside. She wants something that invisible. With aligner, definitely it's not going to be in 9 months. It's going to be slow progression. It's probably about 12 to 14 months of treatment with aligners, and that's if she doesn't have any issue, which, you know, but in this case, I think InBrace will come ahead of the aligners, and probably the same time if you do custom treatment with Light Force or KL Owen.
Yep. And that's where we met, the digital summit. So,
Yep.
Yep. Well, I'm going to open it up to the field, open in the chat, fire in the chat. For anyone from the audience, do you guys have any questions for Dr. Vani regarding this case? We'll give it a couple seconds here, and if not, we'll move on to Dr. Horsey.
I think also very quickly here, Dr. Vani, you spoke on some of the inefficiencies that you've learned along the way, one being scheduling appointments out. You also mentioned about the overcorrection of the vertical. Given we have a mix of providers on this call, and also we each run our practices a little bit different, are there any other efficiencies that you've been able to take away, whether it's this case or the other cases that you've treated and learned from, that you think could be valuable for the other providers on the call?
Can you specify in what relation? I mean, is it compared to aligner therapy, or?
Compared to traditional like chair side, so any kind of tidbits or takeaways that your team does to help you prepare for given appointments or preparing for patients in advance. If there's any clinical takeaways when you're doing the smile designs, like you mentioned, you do a lot of clinical reviews, and that you find that very fruitful and helpful. So have there been any nuggets from those clinical reviews in terms of helping you set up your smile design that you're like, oh, I didn't think about that, but now it makes sense. I'm going to add that in from going forward from now on.
Oh yeah, a lot. It's from elastics, that like how much tip that you have to put in for overcorrection, space closure, because I do quite a few lower incisor extraction. So now as I get more efficient as far as the smile design, but I still schedule the smile design review, just because for me, I want to make sure it's one and done, and I don't have to do a lot at, you know, for DE. Like for me, DE is supposed to be simple. Like in her case, it's just we need to correct the upper alignment a little bit more, and intrusion of the upper right too. And as far as as far as the staff goes, I mean, we have our system. It's pretty simple now. We schedule only 30 minutes as far as wire changes, where before it started with an hour, it goes down to 40, you know, but I also started InBrace with Gen 1. So, you know, so that has become for them now, the because we do a lot of Light Force also, the breakage of brackets is a lot more often with Light Force, just because the ceramic with InBrace, truly we don't have that many broken brackets. And I mean the prep work is very simple now, just because we've been doing it for about 3 years now. For whoever out there that want to give it a try, I think you won't regret it. It's something to think about as far as your lifestyle. Rather than spend so much time on doing the clean checks for a liner, I think I much rather do this and know that it's gonna work. You know, as far as the smile design that you do. And I saw there's somebody asking about IPR for this case. I only design 0.2 millimeter between canine to canine on this case.
And we got one more question that came in from the QA side of it, and it says, how is your staff's experience with the adoption?
My newest staff just started working with me last February and never heard about InBrace. Granted, she's a senior assistant, meaning like she's been in ortho for a lot of years. So, you know, and she started with me in February. We slowly training her as far as just the bonding sequence and stuff. And then I sent her in June to your course for the assistants. I don't know, I forgot what it called. And she came back and picked it up like my other assistant, you know, and there's no problem whatsoever. Very comfortable. I think the Gen 2 update with the newest update on the Gen 2 just make it a lot easier compared to the first generation of Gen 1, where the bracket is much stiffer, you know, much harder. And then of course the plier that Dr. Schwartz actually designed, that's like a godsend, you know, that just makes it more enjoyable. So thank you, Dr. Schwartz, for designing that, because life has just become so much easier. And we look at our schedule and then see an InBrace patients like it on our schedule. There's no sweat whatsoever anymore. It's just part of your routine. And I think whenever you're incorporating a new system in your practice, it truly, I think it has to come from the doctor, that really, because you know, you have to put in 100% into it and believe in it. And for me, that's the biggest, you know, thing that I did. I don't give my staff any options as far as like, well, we're gonna learn together, we're gonna suffer together, but we're gonna win this together.
Right.
If I could do the fireworks that Dr. Daya did in his background at the beginning of the call for Dr. Schwartz on the smart wire plier, then it would be happening right now. But don't know how to cue the fireworks. But thank you, Dr. Vani, for sharing all the insights. I love your takeaway there of like, we're in it together. Same goes for all the InBrace Nation and everyone on this call as well. We're in this together. So exciting. Dr. Horsey is next, but Matt, do you have anything before I?
No, that was so good, Dr. Vani. That was so good. Thank you so much. And you know, please let the questions and comments continue to come through the chat. Again, if it's to Dr. Daya, Dr. Horsey, Dr. Vani, Dr. Schwartz, just let them come on in, and we'll continue to call and ask the way as they come in. So thank you so much, Dr. Vani.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Schwartz, how you doing?
Dr. Vani.
Thank you so much.
Yes. That was just an amazing presentation by Dr. Vani. Thank you so much. Dr. Gus Horsey, how are you doing?
Well, Matt, how's it going?
Going well. It's pretty cold here in California. Reminds me when I was like freezing my butt off in front of your office many moons ago. Yeah, you know, if we can start, just talk a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about, you know, how you came about, you become an InBrace provider. How'd you hear about InBrace provider? What made you want to do InBrace? You have a very unique background, so love for you to share that with the group here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on this. So I actually learned a little bit about lingual orthodontics in residency, and when I came out, I knew that I wanted to kind of practice lingual orthodontics. Now, this is way back in 2007, so this is a long time ago. This is back when there weren't many systems out, so I started with the incognito system, did several hundred of cases with those, and then fell out of kind of favor with using incognito and some other lingual systems. And just happened because I'm on forums and good friends with a lot of orthodontists that did lingual at the time, started to hear a little bit about InBrace and what InBrace was starting to do 2017-ish. So started to kind of look into that, and was fortunate enough to be one of the initial kind of people they trained their team on site. So our team's been doing lingual. I've been doing lingual for 15 years, but InBrace isn't just lingual, obviously, but it's it's not as big of a jump for my team to pick up a different system now that we had already been used to a more difficult system. So started to get trained on that, started to do more and more InBrace. Started to train my team, with InBrace is a great company when it comes to research and development, training, making sure that your team and you have all the resources you need to be able to be successful with the system. So they really do partner with you, and I really love that about InBrace, because that's what I was missing with other systems. So I've really, embraced InBrace as much as I can to make sure that I'm helping contribute as much as I can to the system and to the community. My team loves the system. They, again, they've been trained on the system. They're very comfortable treating patients. The time is actually overall less chair time for everyone involved when it comes to using our InBrace system. Planning ahead of time is less, like we talked about earlier, than aligner planning. There's a lot more help when you have difficult cases, situations. Matthew coming into our office with InBrace on was a big kicker too. So I had it myself as well too, just to kind of show my team and show patients what it looked like, what it felt like, everything like that.
Yep. And so far, how many you've done? We celebrated you recently on Instagram. How many cases have you done now so far?
Over 300.
300. Yeah, that's just remarkable. And what do you keep learning as you do more and more cases?
Yeah, so one of the big tips that I tell everyone who asks is to take photos every visit, because looking back at it, especially with the system that you're not as familiar with, you'll start to pick up things on the photographs that you won't see chairside, just because you're moving so fast between patients and you have a still photo in front of you. So from those photos, as well as just from doing very difficult cases with InBrace, you start to learn kind of, not only can you be kind of as efficient as braces, but because the system's a better system than traditional braces, as you learn across and you start to become more adaptive to the system, it becomes quicker than braces. It becomes more efficient, and it becomes a system that actually is more efficient for patients, more aesthetic for patients, more comfortable for patients over time than other systems. So you start to learn that the capabilities are, endless when it comes to moving teeth. That InBrace is really tapped into moving teeth the most efficient way, and seeing that wow factor quicker than any other system that we've ever used. So,
yeah, I've been really encouraged to hear that story this morning from Dr. Daya, Dr. Vani, everyone who shared today. It's like everyone's very satisfied with the efficiencies of InBrace, how much time savings, but everyone's takeaway is like, but looking back, I could save more time here. I could cut more visits here. And that's the fun part of InBrace, where you see that promise, where you are able to get better and better, save more and more time, and do less and less work, right?
yeah, and like we'll go through probably with the questions on the case, there's only so much you can do to speed up traditional braces. You have to go through a sequence of wires because of how the system is. You have to, do your alignment and leveling before you close space, before you work your elastic. So like you have very few opportunities to gain speed and efficiency with traditional braces. So that's where the wow factor of InBrace is helpful, because they can do as much as biologically as possible with their system and mechanically possible. It's just a matter of you tapping into that.
Amen to that. And again, one of the things that's really, really unique for all the people that are listening today, one thing that you may not know about Dr. Horsey is that he wants to, and is going to open up a all adult only full InBrace practice. Am I right?
Yeah, that's definitely in the future, as far as once we're able to kind of scale to that part, because I do think it's the next step in technology, and for patients, a different option that's not really been out there for them before.
And it works in your practice, right?
Yeah, it does. It's a very smooth transition for us. We committed to it, and it definitely isn't an interruption or disruption during our day.
Right. And again, like today's takeaway, the call is like, it's great for the patient, but it has to work for you. And so without further ado, let's take a look at the first case if you want to walk us through it, Dr. Horsey. Whoa.
Yeah. So this is our first patient. He's 48. He works in the school system. Really nice guy. Basically was not going to wear braces because he was going to be embarrassed of having something on his teeth, and he didn't want, people to mention things about his smile or his bite or anything about his appearance. But really nice guy, really friendly, smiles a lot. So you can tell he definitely would benefit from a more aesthetic smile that he was proud of, and that he could show off to the world. He found us through online and through his dentist, so that's how he came into our office. You can see a little bit in the back there. He's got his lower 8 still present, and we had those extracted before we got started with treatment. But that's some of what's keeping him opened up like he is right now. But severe spacing, upper and lower, anterior, posterior, open bites. So primarily, that's what his major concern was coming into us.
So, and let's take a look at the first initial records.
Yeah, so this is about 5 months, 5 to 6 months in. Like I said, we had the lower 8s extracted. This is Gen 1, and with space closure. So you can imagine the efficiency of Gen 2 is even more efficient when it comes to space closure. Again, if we were to do this with traditional braces, it would mean a leveling aligning wire, probably 2 round nye ties, then a rectangular nye tie, then a stainless steel rectangular, then power chain, then before we even get to where he's closed like this. So this is the big thing that I try to tell people too is once you have your team in place and trained, and once you have your systems in place, chair time for me for InBrace patients is less than it is for regular patients because my team has done all the things chair side. We've already designed where the brackets go, what the wire is going to do. All I'm doing is checking IPR, the bite, and make sure everything's engaged. And that's pretty much already been done. I'm just going to verify it chair side with my team so that the patient feels comfortable and everything like that. So once you get to the point where you're comfortable with your setups, your team's comfortable executing brackets, bonding, rebonding if needed with wire engagement, all those steps, you can really delegate everything when it comes to InBrace, and just be there to make sure it's on autopilot after a while. So again, this is something that I'm not going to achieve in aligners as well too without several overcorrections, several probably a couple different variations of clin checks, probably making sure compliance was really good with that space closure that we're looking to do to make sure tracking stays. So definitely a much more difficult case for aligners.
Awesome. And well, let's go to the final.
Yeah, so this is him at around 12 months. So we're running some elastics off of some triangle elastics to help settle his bite in this case. Pretty much he's finishing out after this. So triangle elastics, 2.5 ounce. You can do up to 4 ounces now on the Gen 2s. But basically to close down his bite and get him going to where he needs to be bite-wise. So we've closed down his anterior, posterior open bites. We've closed all his spaces. We see our patients about every 8 weeks because we like to take photos and we like to check in. This again is Gen 1. Gen 2 is even more efficient, a more hardy system, less breakage, less fire issues. So this is definitely a doable case in InBrace. I do every type of case in InBrace, so this is definitely one I would do. I do any case the patient really wants to do. Auxiliaries, we didn't have to use much of anything besides getting those lower 8s out and those triangle elastics.
Yep. And just really quickly for the audience, for the people that haven't been around for Gen 1, you and Dr. Shorts, and I see BMAC sitting out there. I mean, you're probably chuckling when you talk about Gen 1. And Dr. Shorts, feel free to chime in also. How is Gen 1 different than Gen 2?
Yeah, I mean, Gen 1 was a great attempt at InBrace doing different things than other systems. Gen 2 has improved because there's no longer an external springboard. So your springboard's now internal, basically inside the bracket. External springboards had more likelihood of being broken or, having issues opening and closing the springboard or activating the springboard. The other thing was the wire was a little less hardy in Gen 1. So breakage with wire was a little bit more common. Bond failure was a little bit more common because the bracket pad was less durable in Gen 1. So those things were the main issues that we had with emergency appointments for Gen 1. And when Gen 2 came out, I mean, emergency appointments pretty much are, when it comes to bracket failure or wire, maybe a handful of wires these last 2 years I've had an issue with as far as any type of breakage. And it's always something to do with the patient biting into something. But the springboards aren't an issue anymore. The wire engagement is solid. Once it's in there, it's in there. There's no spontaneous disengagement of the clip. So that's helped a lot,
Right.
tremendously.
Thank you. Dr. Horsey, because this is a live call. As you know, Dr. Shorts has a patient. So we're going to do this. We're going to come back to you, if that's okay. We're going to go back out of order.
That works.
We're gonna make sure that Dr. Shorts comes up just really quickly before he has to go see his patient, and we're gonna come right back to you. Is that all right?
Yeah, that works.
All right. So don't go anywhere. Dr. Shorts, are you still there?
I'm still here.
All right. Well, first of all, as you know, everyone's so grateful for the Dr. Shorts plier. Thank you so much for that. Everyone's it's been a game changer for everyone. So thank you for it.
I'm glad I was able to share it with everyone.
Folks like you and Dr. Horsey, you guys been around forever since the beginning. So thank you so much. We wouldn't be here today without you guys, as Dr. Horsey just mentioned. You know, you guys do so much behind the scenes and helping us with software, hardware, beta testing. Thank you so much. We're indebted to you guys. The reason why we have Gen 2 today and we have all this great story to share is because of folks like you. So thank you so much. So Dr. Shorts, tell us, for those that don't know you, I think everyone in InBrace Nation knows who you are. But for those that don't know you, can you talk a little bit about how long you've been an InBrace provider? How did you find out about InBrace? How did you get started? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I started with InBrace probably around 2017 as well. And I actually was on a thread in a Facebook group, and I ended up talking to Matt Wang probably on Thanksgiving. Actually, we started chatting about it, and it took me about 3 months before I decided to take the dive in. And when I do something, I go 2 feet in, and it worked out. You know, it's changed my practice, for me at least.
Right.
It's really opened up a lot of avenues for more aesthetics in my practice. And I wholeheartedly agree with Gus there about the support you get from InBrace, with the internal staff and all you get from the TISs to make your life much easier in your practice to implement InBrace. They're great help. And you know, I had my troubles with Gen 1 as well, as Gus did, and you know, I went through it, and the patients just really wanted an aesthetic choice. I wasn't big on aligners because the patient compliance is always that factor, and people want an aesthetic choice. And a lot of patients, once I started showing it, you know, want it. Now in my practice, for me, I show it at every consult to everybody. It doesn't matter what type of case it is. I'm always showing InBrace. And the reason for me I do that is because a lot of the parents, once they see it, have become patients of mine because they didn't know it existed and they always wanted to do something. And, you know, a lot of them say, you know, I tried Smile Direct Club, I tried Invisalign, and I didn't do that great. So, and they end up becoming patients, which is, you know, a great thing. So I show it at every consultation, no matter what, even if it's honestly, even if it's a patient that's not ready for treatment, I say, hey, one day you could have these really cool braces, just to show them, because I want it known that I'm do the inside braces. And that's what I've become, the guy who does the inside braces. That's what it's been in my area here. And it's been unbelievable. I love it. You know, I'm probably going to be going on 800 cases now. So it's really something that it's a no-brainer for me. I do surgical cases, exposures, class 2, class 3, anything, open bites, deep bites. And I'm going to show some cases. I don't, you know, I have limited time here, but I'd like to share and show I'm working on a lot of cool new things for InBrace, very excited about. So, you know, we could start showing the cases. So if anybody has questions, we could answer, and any other things that I could talk about here. So this guy is, he came to my practice because he had friends that have already come to my practice that had InBrace, and he wanted InBrace. He, they come, what's great is now they're coming in asking for InBrace, which is fantastic. I love that. You know, I don't have to do much of a sell factor there. So he came in, and that's my biggest growing population right now is my teenagers, you know, the high schoolers. They don't want braces, and they don't want to, and the parents won't get them Invisalign because they know they won't be compliant with it. So this is a great option for them. And a lot of times on cases like this, a deep bite, and I have even a basically deciduous tooth there, an E, which is not a big deal. You ask for what they call a bypass loop, which you'll see in a second. And started here off, you could show the next slide. So that's what a bypass loop looks like. So you would just ask for that when you have a deciduous tooth, if you decide to do that. Basically, this kid only broke 2 wires through the whole case, which is nice. The boys usually are a little rough on them. So we started with the upper in this case, not the lower. Again, I like to listen to the patients, hear them out. A lot of times, starting with the lower could be beneficial, but a lot of times you want to listen to the patient. And if their upper bothers them a lot, I want to start with their chief complaint to make them happy, because they're my best referral source sitting right there. So I want to make them happy as fast as I can. So this is basically, you know, not even, you know, basically the startup, you know, is bonding at that time. And then the next slide, please, is basically finished. Okay, I don't want to go through the whole thing here, but he was basically 9 visits with him and 2 wire breakages. And so it was basically 10 visits altogether with the bond, with D-bonds and everything. And I think he came out great, and he wears his retainers shockingly, which is fantastic. And this family probably sent half a dozen patients to my practice that want InBrace.
Wow.
So it's great. And his brother got InBrace. And I think his dad is actually thinking about doing it now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
like Dr. Daya said, InBrace's are great for practice management. You know, you're definitely a lot further than most people. But for those of you that are joining on this call, you heard that Dr. Shorts mentioned he created the flywheel. And so now he's able to have people coming in specifically asking for InBrace. And because what Dr. Shorts does really well is he makes sure that everyone within 3 feet of him knows that he's an InBrace provider. And just for perspective sake, you know, you said you finished this case in 9 months. I'm sorry, how long was it?
9 visits, it was 10 months.
10 months. How long would it have taken you if this case was treated with emotional InBraces to get the attention and results that you got here?
Well, it would definitely be a lot more visits with traditional braces. I would say he'd probably be more like 15, 16 months
Okay.
with traditional braces. I didn't, you know, you didn't see him that much, except for the 2 wire breakages and the regular visits, you know, the initial consultation. I include all the visits, you know, everything that I do every time this patient's in here. So clinically, maybe you know, in my office, I basically have my assistants doing 99% of everything. They do the bondings, the wire changes. I do the single tooth jigs, or the, you know, and the blue bite is the 2 things that I like to do in the IPR. But just recently, I got COVID for the first time. And in my office, I have 1 column that's all InBrace patients. So I could have 10 to 12 patients just InBrace with my day. And we did not take them out of the schedule. My assistant saw them for the 3 days that I was out, and still saw all the patients with them. And you know, she texted me on a couple of questions, and it was, you know, it was great. So really, you could delegate a lot to your staff, and it's, you know, once you have a system set up in your office. So I'm gonna go to the next case.
Sure.
Okay, so this patient came in from actually I treated the kid. So the mom wanted The reason why I want to show this case is about torque and what InBrace can do and how well and efficient it is doing torque. So basically here, here you could say you want to start with the upper or the lower. And I started with the upper. I wanted to get the upper. That torque I knew was going to take me some time. So I wanted to get on that right away and also open the bite up a little bit to allow those lower teeth, because they're really locked in. I wanted to get those lower teeth out of occlusion there. So next slide, please. Okay, so I started, that's the first day of bonding. Basically, that's her bite. I always start with one arch. I do not do both arches at the same time. It is absolutely not necessary, and I have found that the patient acclimating to InBrace is so much easier. It's less stress on the patient, less stress on you, less stress on your staff. The appointments, my appointments bondings are done in about 15 minutes. We're done. And then the next 15 minutes, we're talking about foods and brushing and, water pick and all of that. So it really is, 30 minutes. That's all you need. And here I want to show that you have, to people that don't know, sometimes you can't get a bracket on every tooth, and you need to bond the wire to the tooth, as you can see on the upper right too there. So that's something that is also easy to do for your staff as well. I use some Flotane and bond it right to the tooth, and it works great. Next slide, please. Okay, here I bonded the lower. Again, we don't have too much going on with that lateral there that we needed to bond the wire to there. But you also notice on the upper how nice the case and the torque on those upper centrals are from where we started. And this case, if I remember, Ann's case was 12 visits in my office. There's no way, at least in my hands, that I could get that torque correction in 7 months with aligners. I can't. Maybe someone out there can, but I can't do it. And she didn't want aligners from the beginning anyway. Also want to note that patient came back with the lower molar off, and that's okay. Sometimes you just, on an emergency appointment, you just assess things real quick. Sometimes you don't need to put it back on. If you're in Smart Wire 1, put that 6 back on when you go to Smart Wire 2. Be efficient and not make an emergency appointment much longer and disrupt things. So, but that's getting to know the system and know what it can do for you and for your staff. Next slide, please. Okay, so here things are aligning nice. I submit for a DE. We had 1 DE. In this case, we have some unwanted space on the upper right there. I needed some tip correction. She's not biting exactly the way she should be biting for the photos. I always want to just love my staff when they take photos and they ask the patient to bite down, and the patient just doesn't bite down the way you're supposed to. But did a DE, and then basically the next slide. So you could see here, we got nice little arch alignment, and you could see in that top photo there, you could see that the occlusion is really nice. Again, my staff, not the best with their photos, but big difference, nice torque correction. It took me about, let me just see here, that was about 14 months for that case. And she is super happy, loving life, and big smile, and really nice change for her. Next. Okay, this guy came to me. He was Invisalign. He was a failure at Invisalign, and he wanted something aesthetic. And he came to me, and we talked about InBrace. He saw it actually on my social media page. and he said that, you know, he wanted to go for it. So here in this case, you look at this case and you would say, you know, obviously lower incisor extraction. You want to do that possibly, but I chose not to do that in this case. I decided to push InBrace to the limits and see what it can do. And so next slide, please. So the reason why I can't show you slides in between is because I have a special wire that I'm developing with InBrace that actually creates a lot of space and fit that tooth in beautifully. And you know, from where he started, I don't know if you want to, but you could see how much of the deep bite there, that, and the torque again, correction on him on next, you know, we could jump back, how much improvement there is. And even on that lower incisor where the gingiva is a little low on there, I then ordered a DE to give a little more torque on that lower incisor to improve that. And as you could see there, as it's working, that that torque, it really improved that lower incisor, the gingiva looking there. So and the other thing I wanted to add is, in the beginning, I went 6 to 6 on the upper. In my DE, I added the 7s. I didn't start with the 7s in this case. You could have if you wanted to, but I didn't in this case. And I wanted to I added the 7s in the DE. So you can do that. I never do 7s on the lower. That's just my thing. I just feel the tongue. I don't want it to be an issue for the patient, so I do buckle 6, 7 when I want to go to the 7s. But I think this is, you know, turning out to be really nice case from where he started. And he's super happy. Do a little enamelplasty on those incisal edges on the centrals. Next slide. And you'll get that. Okay, this patient also was a Invisalign failure. But she came to me and said, oh, by the way, I'm getting married in 7 months. Can you fix my teeth? And I said, okay, I have the great solution for you, because if we can't get them off, you won't see them in the pictures. And I showed her InBrace and she was super happy. So we bonded her up. Again, even though I was limited in time, I did not do upper and lower on the first visit. I did 1 visit. Then I had it back 6 weeks later, a little sooner than normal. And then I bonded the lower, okay? Basically, upper's turning out nice. You got the overbite, open bite issues there a little bit. You had the lower incisor where I didn't have enough room for that lower incisor. Tough to even bond that locket to the tooth, but did the best I could in that case. As you can see, also did not go to the 6s, didn't want to open the bite up anymore. So I stayed 5 to 5 on this case. Next slide. Okay, and this is her finish. I think it looks great. She came back and she didn't, on her honeymoon, didn't wear the retainer that well. So I made a retainer to push out that upper right too a little bit. And so that looks a lot better, but she's super happy with the result. She smiled a lot during her wedding, which I was happy about. And we bonded. I have a bender too, so we have custom lingual bars that we do in the office. So really adapts well to the teeth, and she was super happy. That was 7 visits, including the consultation. So it was, I think, 5 office visits, you know, with InBrace on. And I think she looked, you know, to me, she was super happy from where she started.
I think this is the last case for this.
Oh, the last case? Okay.
Yep. So I know you got to run and go see patients, but before we let you go, and
Yeah, I have a few minutes for questions. Go ahead, if anybody has.
Questions from the audience. Anything? We'll hang on for a couple seconds. And Dr. Horsey, thanks again for being so accommodating. We'll bring you back on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Gus.
And as
And we also have the remainder of Scott's cases on Thursday as well. So if you want to see more, we'll add those in for Thursday's session.
Dr. Scott Schwartz will also be available on Thursday, our next session number 2. All right. Well, Dr. Schwartz, thank you so much for your time.
All right.
Go ahead and see your
But we
patient.
did get a question. We did get
Oh,
one question.
sorry.
Sorry,
Dad.
one question. Was it due to the time that you didn't bond the upper 6s and 7s and build intrusion for more overbite correction? Was it due to time that you did? Was it a timing concern
here-
and why
for
that's
her
why you didn't
case?
that-
No,
Yeah, why you
so,
didn't bond the
no,
upper
I
6s
didn't,
and 7s?
no. If you wanted to get more overbite, maybe I could have done a little more, maybe some IPR and then extrusion. Yes, we could do that. But time constraint, yes, we could have done that. I don't think you need to add the 6s and 7s to do that. You can do that 5 to 5. You could do your IPR and your extrusion in the setup without going to the 6s and 7s. That's my opinion. And I just want to also just let anybody know that if I'm always available, you can get my contact information from Matt. If you have questions, I'm always available. I love helping anybody. I think it's, for me, it's been I'm in practice 30 years and I still brought it on even 23 years into practice. And it's really taken me to just another level for me. And the patients really, I can't speak highly enough about InBrace and what it's done and what it will do for you, for your practice. And, take baby steps if you want, but you can definitely implement it to almost any kind of case that you have in your practice. And good luck. And I'm always available, and you get my contact information from Matt and Dr. Tara. All right. Thank you.
Dr. Schwartz.
Thank
the
All
OG.
right.
Yeah.
All right, bye now.
We appreciate it. Have a good
Bye
afternoon.
All right, Dr. Horsey, you're back.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
All right, tough to follow that.
Nah, stop. So we'll go back to
All
that
right.
case. We'll go back to that case that you were just talking about, just in case if there's any questions
Okay.
from that little close up there. But just as people are coming in with questions, and feel free to share with us. What was your takeaway from this case? What did you learn? I love that you guys are all talking about what you learned from each case after looking back. What was your takeaway from this case after doing it?
Yeah, just the efficiency of space closure and vertical elastics on a client patient, on how that could work really well to correct his open bite and to close his spaces really efficiently. So yeah, it worked out really well for him as far as him being able to get his bite actually together for the first time in years. So he was definitely happy with that.
Dr. Horsey, when you were talking about the space closure, and one of the aspects that's not in IFS overcorrections is that vertical overcorrection that our providers need to add in. So I know sometimes there's question of how much or what to do. And with space closure, that's one of the considerations that you want to take into account when you're building that smile design. So when you're thinking about your setups and setting it up for success, like you mentioned, you can save chair time if you set it up for success at the beginning. So what have you learned, and what are you doing now in your smile designs to make sure you account, in particular, since we're talking about spacing, but in spacing cases for that vertical overcorrection?
Yeah, we definitely make sure that if we have a deep bite already, that we're making sure we're not deepening the bite by closing that space. When it comes to like an open bite case, sometimes you do want that space closure to kind of deepen your bite. So like, depending on the type of vertical that you have, you want to kind of incorporate that in your overall overbite calculation.
Awesome. And that's one of the things for those who are newer and providers on. We have some aspects of overcorrection that we do behind the scenes, but vertical is one that we do not. So that's what you have to put in your design that Dr. Horsey is referring to.
Yes, and there's great resources on the website as well too for design too.
Dr. Horsey, after doing this case, how did it encourage you to do more cases like this one? And also did it encourage you to say, hey, when I see a case like this, it's in my best interest, it's my preferred option to treat it with InBrace? How did doing a case like this give you that awakening?
Yeah, I mean, just that significant of a bite and spacing issue at the same time, and seeing it correct really nicely in a patient that is compliant, happy with results, see it work efficiently, made me think that that's probably if I were to choose a system for patients, I would probably choose that for them
Right.
because I know how quickly we can get things done as long as they can tolerate, having something on the inside or even know that it's possible. It's something that I think is going to be a more efficient system than if I were to go through a wire sequence and then close
Right.
spaces and then, get into elastics, all that.
Right. I mean, this was a Gen 1 case, right?
Yep.
I mean, Gen 1 and Gen 2 it's like some people, like I remember you and Scott would call and say, man, this might as well be called Gen 5. So if you were to treat this, before we get into talking about traditional braces and liners, now, if you were to treat this same case with a Gen 2, I mean, where would the time savings be? Where would you save some time and cut some corners, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably get into our elastics earlier. We could probably start to see the space closing even quicker.
Mhm.
The wire, especially now with the springboards and the wire elasticity and lack of stiffness, like it closes it really quickly. So we probably would see even quicker space closure. And elastics, we could probably even run earlier and heavier elastics for them.
Okay. And this is 12 months, right?
Yeah.
You got to this point in 12 months. Now, if this was, just to educate me, if this was traditional braces, how long would it have taken you to get to this point?
Well, yeah. So if we're doing it in my office, what we usually start out with is a 14 nine tie, then a 20 nine tie, and each visit is about 6 to 8 weeks. So your first visit's going to be a 14. 2 months later, you're in a 20. 2 months later, you're in a 1725. If everything goes well without any emergencies, then we're moving on to an 1825 steel, starting to close some spaces. Um, then we're potentially running some elastics off of that. Then we've got to come and refresh that power chain every 6 weeks to keep it fresh and keep the space closing. So we're adding in a couple extra appointments just to refresh chain and to check elastics. So we're probably almost doubling the amount of actual chair time I'm seeing the patient because I'm seeing them probably almost twice as much to refresh chain or to change out a wire when I don't need to change out a wire with InBrace. So that's where your real efficiency comes in, is you're not babysitting the system to make it constantly work. Once that D2, once that smart wire two's in and it's working, you're really just waiting for it to finish working. So I can probably go out further than 8 weeks now. I could probably go 10 to 12 when it comes to my InBrace cases. And that's where the efficiency comes in, where I can't quite do that with bracketed systems, the traditional braces system.
Amazing. Wow. As you're going through the wire sequence, I actually lost count. So thank God you were counting. But that's amazing. So thank you, Dr. Daya, for your time. We are just really quickly. There is a question from Dr. Uni. Dr. Uni, thank you so much for being on the call. I know you're going to be sharing a case here in just a second. Dr. Uni, I know you had a question for Dr. Horsey. Since you are one of the panelists here today, do you want to go ahead and ask Dr. Horsey your question yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, first of all, for having me on the panel. I'm very honored I'm with all the legendary InBrace providers here. Dr. Hersey, it's a beautiful case. Your patient looks amazing. I'm sure he was thrilled with the result. I also have a good number of spacing cases, and oftentimes with the Gen 2 wires, we've had a few cases where the wire will fatigue and break before we are ready to advance to the next wire. So I've had cases where I'm jumping to smart wire within 4 to 6 weeks rather than waiting 8 to 10, which is fine. But have you encountered those cases, and how do you handle them?
Yeah, so for larger spaces like this, anything past about 4 millimeters or more, you're going to want to break that up into space closure with 2 different digital enhancements. So your first setup's going to close up to about 3 millimeters of space, and then you want to get your second, your DE basically, once you scan the patient to get the rest of the space closure. So if you have a space, his are pretty spread out, but some of his are a little bit above 3 millimeters. So you might want to do some of that in your smart wire first setup and some of that in your DE setup. For extraction, that's definitely recommended for a full extraction site, like a premolar extraction site. You want to break that up into 2 space closing wires. Your first wire closes half, and then your second wire closes the second half. That wire in his Gen 1, it definitely is a risk for breakage with his case. So yeah, in Gen 2, if you break it up, anything more than 3 millimeters, just don't close more than that in your one wire, and then your second wire on your enhancement close the remaining. But there are
Gotcha,
different
thank you.
techniques to make the wire more flexible with ice and cold to make it kind of flex if needed. But I wouldn't extend it past 3 millimeters because that's when you're going to see breakage.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Horsey has 2 more cases before we get to Dr. Uni and Dr. Shulsky. I just want to make sure, Dr. Shulsky, thank you so much for being on and thank you for sharing. Are you okay to stay on for a little bit longer before we get to you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I'll be quick.
All right. No. Dr. Uni, you're good too, right?
Yes, I'm good.
All right. Thank you. All right. Go ahead, Dr. Tara, if we could show the next case.
We're on it. There you go,
All right.
Dr. Horsey.
Yeah, so this is our next case. He's 18. His brother had InBrace, so that's what kind of got him involved in InBrace. He also didn't want anything on the outside for he's graduating, then him and his brother were going to drive cross country, and they're preparing for life and didn't want something on the outside of his teeth for all those moments that are coming up. So that's kind of how he came to us. Obviously, you can see his problems are anterior crossbite, his occlusal cant, his crowding. So those are his main concerns when it came to treatment. And then we could go to his first setup. This is at the 7-month mark. So this case was one where I chose it because of the torque factor. When you look at his initial, his upper left one, and his lower incisors have some torque issues that are causing some of his interference for his crossbite. And even in Gen 1, you can see how if you control the setup to establish that torque control, you can correct that for him, which is the primary cause of his crossbite and ultimately the primary cause of his cant. So this is him and his smart wire. I believe this is actually smart wire 2 at this point in the upper, smart wire 1 on the lower, because we just bonded his lower left 2 in this case. You can see his bite has improved greatly. We if you can't bond, which you know by now, if you can't bond or access a tooth at the beginning, don't worry about it. Add it to the setup later, or bond it directly in, or use one of the mini tabs that they have now to bond it directly to the tooth to get it to start moving. So even though there's teeth blocked out, you don't have to worry about it when you're starting to let your wires work and cook and let them make room. So bite buildups to help disclude the bite with his crossbite interference. But this is 7 months in for us. This is 3 visits, meaning we bond the lower, then we bond the upper, and then we switched his upper to smart wire 2, added his bracket to his lower left 2, and added that to the arch wire. So this is what our sequence looks like as far as like how we go about setting up the cases. We usually do bond 1 arch at a time, just for what Dr. Swartz was saying as far as comfort, convenience, chair time, everything for the patient and for the practice. And then we have another follow-up, I believe, at 14 months. So his alignment's looking good. His crossbite's obviously corrected. He's pretty much finishing up and ready to go at this point after his DE. So he's looking good and he's happy. Again, when you talk about teenagers, I think that's a big market, not only from the compliance standpoint, but also the OH standpoint. If you're talking about brackets on the outside, and a lot of these patients that are prone to caries, you could see this blow up quickly. And then the patient, the parent, the dentist, everybody's kind of a little less excited about the results. So yeah, that's the 2 for that patient.
Okay.
And then third patient here chose another type of case. This patient, their child was a patient of ours. She's a nurse. She didn't like her crowding, obviously, and she also had that upper right 4, which was heavily bombed out and was unrestorable, pretty much needed extraction. So for this case, because of the crowding on the lower and the midlines being close, we decided to do upper and lower right 4 extractions for hers and close the space to help with her alignment and retraction. So we did that. So upper lower 4s extraction. So this kind of shows us about 6 months into bonding the upper, so a little bit longer on the lower, but 6 months since both arches were bonded. So you can see in the lower, we've got pretty much that full extraction space. There's probably like a millimeter left. That one's been on for about 8 months. 6 months in the upper, you see the upper ones are now both bonded. Initially, we weren't able to access that upper right one because of the rotation. And you can see the extraction space on that side starting to close. We're starting to see those teeth unravel in the upper. as well as the lower, and we're looking to work to keep those midlines on. And then the next one, I believe, is 14 months after that, 14 months total. We've got the extraction spaces primarily closed, and we're starting to see our midlines stay on, and pretty much we have some ferment for the bite of the canines to make sure we're not biting into anything on that. And she's looking good at this point with her alignment, arch form, and the space closure of those extractions are pretty much finished up. If you can imagine, extractions require not only working up your wires, but also making sure if you're doing brackets, I wouldn't try this case with the liners, so I can't compare it with the liners. But if you're doing brackets, you're working up in that wire sequence again. Your closing space, I try to use also like closing coil springs or any auxiliaries I can use to close the space as fast as possible. Then you have to make sure that your roots are staying uprighted. So that could be more of a challenge as far as more chair time, more appointments, if you're talking about traditional brackets for this case.
And we had a
Yep, that
question,
should be the
since
last
we're
one.
talking about since we're talking about the extraction spaces, did you have any problems with breakage in the extraction sites, or while you were closing space? And then also, did you stage the space closure with the DE, similar to what you were discussing earlier with
Yeah,
the
you want to
spacing
stage these in your DEs. So the initial setup, you can have them close half the space, and then your DE, you can have them close the remaining space. So this is Gen 2, so this is a little bit hardier wire, so the breakage isn't as big of an issue, but you do want to stage those space closures into thirds space or 3 millimeters at a time for your smart wires, just to keep them as durable as possible and less likely to break.
How has your tip control been with space closure with Gen 2, especially with extraction spaces
Really,
closing?
really
That's one.
good. Yeah, because
Is that
the locket and the bracket and the bracket and the wire interface is so pretty much locked in that you don't have any slop or any issues like you do with the bracketed system, where you have to worry about if your wire is large enough, if it's the real size, if your slot's the real size, if you have sliding mechanics, how are you gonna pick friction over uprighting? So there's a lot of factors when it comes to making sure on a bracketed system that you keep your spaces closed, but your roots uprighted and you avoid tipping. When we don't have that issue when it comes to Gen 2 has a really effective way of closing spaces with keeping the roots uprighted because of the interaction between the bracket and the wire being so form fitted. I mean, they're pretty much locked in, so there's no room for any type of tip issues or root tipping issues that we've seen. And we don't have
And
to
we've
use a
been
lot of
encouraging,
auxiliaries anymore.
that's fair, like the no power change and no hybrid segments either.
Yeah.
And with that, we've been trying to encourage more and more providers to dive into more complex cases, utilizing TADs or doing extractions. Since that's your wheelhouse, you've been doing that. What's kind of one takeaway or learning that you would give, say, a new provider coming to you and saying, I'm about to do this extraction case?
Yeah, so I always leave the door open for the patient and myself to use auxiliaries, because you never know when something can make it more efficient, or if you want to do some space closure first with some brackets, and then jump into InBrace, just so the patient, can start to, see that result a little quicker with the chain while they're waiting for their InBrace to come in. You can use auxiliaries when it's needed, like we use everything from quad helix before treatment to coil springs to everything like that. So I would say jump in and try it. That's the only way you're going to learn. So if you haven't tried it before, try it. Use the resources online to help you anticipate any side effects. And then just know that, InBrace is a great system that can always support you when it comes to your digital enhancement or doing a review of your smile setup and your smile design to make you successful. So you may not know how you're going to get to the end, but there's always resources for people to help you get there.
That's great advice. Matt,
Yeah, thank
go
you.
ahead.
No, I just want to do a shout out to one of my favorite people in the world who's been asking these very insightful questions, and that's Dr. Jessica Glauser. For those that don't know her, she is amazing. She is phenomenal, and she will be on the call on Thursday as well. So if you are not, if you haven't registered for session 2, make sure you register for session 2, because there's going to be so many other doctors who, if you're getting something from this call, you're gonna get more on Thursday as well. So Dr. Glauser is going to be one of those people that's going to be sharing on Thursday. So, okay, so were there any other cases for Dr. Horsey before we go on to Dr. Uni? Or I'm sorry, we're gonna go Dr. Shulsky, right, Dr. Tara?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the last one, but Dr. Horsey will be on Thursday as well. So if there's any questions that you're thinking about, especially the wheels turning with extractions or complex cases, be sure to prepare those for Thursday so he can answer those questions for you.
Yep. And thank you so much, Dr. Horsey, for your years of support. And like Dr. Scott Shorts, they are key, people of the InBrace Nation, InBrace community. And what I love about the InBrace Nation is that everybody is so willing to help one another. So like Dr. Scott Shorts, Dr. Horsey's always making himself available as well. So, I'll be putting his contact information.
Thanks, y'all.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Horsey.
All right. Dr. Shulsky, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Well, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the call. Thanks for staying on. Glad that we love seeing the engagement. Every time we plan for these calls, it always goes over time. And we just, again, this is a tribute to InBrace Nation. So thank you for being on the call today. For those that don't know you, please, if you don't mind just sharing a little background. How'd you come across InBrace and hear about it? What made you get started?
Perfect. So I started InBrace right out of residency. I practice here in Virginia. I started InBrace doing Gen 1 quickly. You guys transfer to Gen 2. I'm loving it. And I use it at all my practices. Well, we have 3 locations. I took over for a retiring orthodontist. So I have a presentation of a case that, I took over for him. And so I'm going to compare that with a current case that we have in InBrace and just stressing, treatment modalities, not one is better than the other, but some is more efficient than the others. So
That's right. Thank you for saying
stated.
that. Yeah. I know we had a little more of a provocative title, but that was because we just wanted to catch everyone's attention. Like Dr. Tara said at the beginning of the call, we really focused over the last couple of years is why even bother with a new modality? And we talked heavily about what's in it for the consumer, what's in it for the patient. But 2024 and beyond, what we really want to focus on is what's in it for you? What's in it for you, the doctor? What's in it for you, the provider? So love that intro. So why don't we just jump right into it, Dr. Shulsky? Love to see it. Excited.
Perfect. So here's our patient, Miss Duria. I apologize again. I'm just gonna our progress photos. We had an issue with our camera. So if there's any instance where you're not seeing a progress photo, I substituted a screenshot of our scanned image. So Miss Duria here's her general overview. And then if you go to the next slide, I have kind of the patient chief complaint. So she's a 52-year-old female, busy mom to 3 teenage girls. She had no history of ortho. She was referred to us from her general dentist because she had increasing recession around her canines, and it was due to excessive rotations of the canines, heavy class 2. But, patient stated to me that she was actually generally happy with her smile, and she was literally only there because the general dentist referred her to us. And so you can go to the next slide. And so just delving in, again, the pictures weren't as phenomenal as these scans kind of show. So she had pretty significant rotations of her upper canines. She had proclination of the lower incisors and some spacing. And so here we go. Again, it's showing a little bit more. She had that heavy class 2 on the right. The scan, and I'll show you in the next slide, the recession that's going on her upper canine. So some loss of periodontal tissue, and she's heavily occluding on those upper canines, especially the right side. And the lateral force of her traumatic bite is just increasing the recession. So, my dilemma here is, what do I treat her with? She's literally sitting in my office saying, I'll do whatever you want me to do, whatever you recommend. She really did not want traditional braces at 52 years old. Mom of 3 girls. I really did not think clear aligners were going to be the go-to choice for her. And I'll discuss that even further. So, we chose InBrace for her. Again, these are a little dark. I apologize. So we direct bonded the wire to the canines we started off with the lower arch first. You know, having redone this case, I probably would have just started off with the top, since that was our chief complaint. But I wanted the patient to get used to everything. She had never had ortho. She's 52. So, you know, I introduced the lower first. 4 weeks later, we bonded the top. So before I delve into, you know, how our case turned out, I kind of wanted to go into my thought process of, you know, why I chose InBrace over the clear aligner therapy, or even, you know, traditional braces. And for me, it's rotations. So rotations are just, you know, any if you choose traditional braces or, you know, in this InBrace, I feel like brackets and wire, they just give you more control. So I'm going to show a case that the previous orthodontist that retired had, and it's a extreme case, but it just goes to show, you know, what trouble I have run into with rotations and using clear aligners. So you can go to the next slide. And so this case is Mr. S. And so he is currently had been in clear aligner therapy. So presented with a diastema, severe rotations of the lower canines. And his chief complaint, he was sent again by the general dentist. Chief complaint was not to close the diastema, because obviously that would make this case much, much more difficult. His chief complaint and what the dentist wanted was literally to derotate the lower canines and uncrowd the lower, because as you can see, he was in traumatic occlusion on that upper right one. And so they just wanted to get him out of this traumatic occlusion. Okay, so, and it's not showing here, but these are progression photos. So this patient was literally bonded in 2018. And so I think that is the initial bond in 2018. And in the center is 2020. And then to the very right is literally January 2024. So as you can see, space was created early, and it was literally refinement after refinement after refinement. They still cannot get these canine rotations. I came in somewhere around 2020, you know, begged the patient, you know, you've been in treatment for 4 years now. Can we please try another treatment modality? You know, he was promised that Invisalign and clear line therapy was the way to go. And he was told that it would fix his rotations and his traumatic bite. What eventually did we end up doing for Mr. S? So this was a fly by your seat moment. You know, he had been in aligner 27, and I just we had a cancellation. I said, can you please just let me put you in regular braces? Now, had I gotten him to be an InBrace patient, that would have been even better. But, you know, finally he broke down and I said, please let me put you in braces. So this was literally last month, and we put him in braces. But it just goes to show we all have these cases where, you know, it's refinement after refinement after refinement. And specifically for me, the rotations are the biggest thing that I notice. The plastic slips off the teeth, the patient, it's not tracking, and it just doesn't provide efficient treatment. And so back to Ms. Duria. Again, we direct bonded the SmartWire 1 to our upper canines in January of 2023. I'm showing the initial here. So the initial is to the left, again, almost like 90-degree rotations. And 7 months later, I have almost complete derotation of these canines. And again, I know that the last case with our aligners was an extreme case, but we all have cases like this. So for me to get this in 7 months, for me, it's a wow moment. And then here is where she is in September of 2023. The DE was submitted, and this was submitted just specifically because I didn't get that IDB tray for the 3s. So I wanted to have the 3s repoed, and I wanted to settle her occlusion. And then this is essentially where she is at today. 14 months in, you know, we're essentially done. I will have her in next visit for an evaluation to get the braces off. Our goals here, you know, she was not aesthetically driven, so she will not wear elastic. She's already told me. So we have improved her class 2 with little to no elastic wear at all. Completely derotated the canines, and I did not make overjet worse because, you know, she did have a lot of proclination of the lower incisors with spacing. My thought process and my communication to InBrace was, you know, please do not retrocline those lower incisors to the point where we make her overjet worse. They were able to fulfill that, and she is generally happy with her smile. And so my lessons learned, you know, obviously no treatment modality is better than the other, but it's very fair to say that certain modalities are more efficient than others. You know, as orthodontists, brackets and wire, we just have more control. InBrace gives us the ability to use that control, but on the lingual side, which creates, you know, the aesthetic type of treatment for our patients. From my experience, rotations of laterals, rotations of canines are extremely hard to treat with clear aligner therapy. There's more efficient options out there, and that efficient option for me is InBrace. So being able to recognize which modalities work best for you, you know, makes us happier as orthodontists and makes our patients happier.
What a good presentation. You did the job for me. Now I got nothing to do. But no, thank you so much, Dr. Shulsky. That was an amazing presentation. Thank you for putting that together. Again, before we let you go, any questions from the field for Dr. Shulsky? Okay. If not, Dr. Tara, did you have any closing remarks or questions for Dr. Shulsky?
No, I would always like to wrap it up with the clinical takeaways, but like you said, she did our job for us for the most part with her lessons learned and the tidbits there. And I guess as I think about this a little bit more, being that we do have new providers on the call, I always like to take it back to the smile design since that's where everything starts. Did you consider any overcorrections in your design for those rotations? Because when you're thinking about the comparison from aligners to InBrace, a lot of times people overlap the mentalities when it comes to the clean check in the smile design, right? And so a lot of times with aligners, when you're doing that smile design or that clean check, you're overcorrecting that rotation to account for, obviously, all the pieces that we know. Did you take that into account in your smile design?
I did. And so with her, though, I kind of let InBrace guide me on this. And so when I did the clean check, there wasn't any rotate over corrections. I did make sure that there was obviously IPR and space made available. And that space was actually created pretty early. And I actually did not need to do any overcorrections for this. So you guys were pretty accurate.
And then on that piece too, as you're thinking about it, because you bonded the locket and then you added the bracket and then you went into a DE. So if I had the timelines correct, she was in probably those stages of the first SmartWire, that initial kit for about 14 months. Is that right? And then you did the DE or?
No, the DE was done 7 months in or 8 months.
7 months in? 8 months in? Okay. Because a lot of the times what you showed in your progression is being orthodontist and working with traditional, we have a inkling to tinker, right? Because usually with traditional, we're doing something every appointment. So what was the indicators when you felt that you were ready to change the wire out, like versus letting it continue to cook for those rotations?
So for me, it was when I wasn't seeing any more progress. So like I saw progress of the rotation, and when I wasn't getting any more rotation with SmartWire 1, you know, we moved on to SmartWire 2.
Okay. So just letting it cook until you don't feeling like you have to jump to something early.
Yeah, absolutely. Let it cook.
Sounds good. I appreciate you putting together the presentation. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you so much.
So without further ado, last but not least, we have our really good friend and amazing orthodontist, Dr. Uni Wang. Dr. Uni is actually, I just got to give her a quick shout out. She is on vacation. She is she's taking her personal time off to be on this call. So thank you, Dr. Uni. Dr. Uni, you there?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Matt. That's Thursday.
Oh,
so I'll be back on
Thursday's
Thursday.
call.
That's not
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Well,
thank you
anyway.
guys again for having me on the panel. I have a few minutes before I go back to the patients. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. I decided to focus on doing a pretty simple, straightforward cases that could go wrong if we don't control things well. But cases that I feel like for many beginning like providers can easily do with InBrace in order to gain confidence to be able to take the next step to go on to taking more complex cases. So my first patient, I believe probably it's Tristan. So we have a 16-year-old high school junior student. He is a competitive swimmer. He came in, typical teenager boy. Mom did not think that he was going to wear the liners. He didn't want any braces. And also regarding his a little discoloration that's present on the upper right too, he did not want any attachments, no braces, because he didn't want to make it worse. So we all thought that InBrace would be a great treatment modality for Tristan. And also, Mom and I both felt like he wasn't going to be compliant with anything. So this is his initial photos. And if you can please go to the next one. So whenever I have a shallow bite, class 3 tendency patients, I always start with the upper arch so that we can gain a little more overjet. And in this case, for Tristan, he had anterior crossbite at the upper 2 areas, so which is why we decided to bond the upper arch first. And whenever I have a shallow bite and also the high lateral patients, I'm always concerned that's not the case for me with the liners, because we know that oftentimes we're going to lose track of the maxillary laterals are not going to track, and then it's going to be a repetitive refinement over and over again. So here it is at the upper arch bonding for Tristan. And he came in, this was actually 6 weeks after he came back for the first visit, because there was a wire out of upper right 6, I believe. And within 6 weeks, he just looked here amazing. Oh, I'm sorry. So here you can see how the alignment on the upper has already been leveled and aligned. And his overjet and overbite has also significantly have improved. And we are also here running as our auxiliaries, upper 6 to lower 4. We use 4 ounce here as well. And overall, he looks, I think, a lot better than us having to go through aligners where we know we're going to lose track of the laterals. And also, if we do braces, oftentimes when we have braces, lower crowding, shallow bite, it often leads to opening of the bite. But I feel like InBrace is a fantastic modality in controlling the vertical, even though they are brackets and wires, but because they're digitally planned and the brackets are positioned with a plan in mind, I feel like InBrace is very efficient in treating out class 3, shallow bite, and high lateral cases. So very similar case. We have Joel in this slide here. He's 37-year-old engineer. He works remotely with a company in Silicon Valley. He also did not want to do any braces or aligners because he didn't want anything on the labial surfaces. And also another great case, I feel like a lot of providers who are thinking about starting InBrace, something like this would be a great cases to start InBrace with, since we don't have to deal with the deep bite and there's less likelihood of requiring speed bumps here to bite turbos. So this is our progress photos. We, again, same thing for Joel. We fitted the upper arch first here, and then we moved on to the lower. As you can see, I'm not having any issues with tracking the upper laterals. Don't have to worry about that, even though they are a little bit undersized. And for both Tristan in the previous slide and also for Joel, we had built in about 0.3 to 0.4 millimeters of IPRs for the lower arch so that we can deepen the overbite also. And this is where Joel is today. I think this was only about a few weeks ago, and he is very happy with the progress so far. And we recently then, we are actually planning to scan for his DE at his next visit. So far, we have happy patients and we don't have to deal with any stainings on the outside, because that's also something else that Joel was also sensitive about. So far, the treatment is going as planned.
And Uni, in both of these cases, and I know the other two are similar, and these two were similar. You've already spoken about how you fit the upper, traditionally on the class 3, depending on the bite, of course. But in these two cases, you fitted the upper first. Are there any other considerations that you took into account, whether it's the clinical approach or during your design process with these two to get such a successful outcome in a short amount of time for class 3 tendency patients?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tara. So what I took into consideration was building in a little bit of a minor intrusion of the upper and the lower posteriors, as we are building in a little more extrusion to the upper and the lower anteriors for the bite closure. So that's something that that I feel like InBrace was superior at doing, where the traditional brackets and wires are not able to do because they're not digitally planned.
Good call out. And I think, I mean, thus far, just beautiful cases and progression. So I think you nailed it. I don't know if there's any questions about class 3 tendencies. If you have them, I know her other 2 cases are a little bit similar there too. So if anybody has any questions from the chat or Q&A, feel free to drop them in so we can make sure we come back to those tidbits. But I'll keep going to your next cases then.
Perfect. So here is Miriam here. So she came in because her chief complaint was the space between the lower incisors. She hated it. And she came in through InBrace marketing I guess advertisement. So she came in, she didn't ask anything about aligners or traditional braces. She only wanted InBrace. And she didn't even want to see fees for the other treatment modalities. She knew this is what she wanted. And she wanted to close the space as soon as possible. So for this is only about, I believe, 3 or 4 months after we fitted. And here the wires are not even smart wire 2s yet. So here you can see the space between the lower 1-to-1 has fully closed. And also the space around the upper left 3 has also closed. And oftentimes I hear from my colleagues or friends, like, can you achieve like AV or finishing with InBrace is a question that I often get. And I feel like with a good plan and also the smile design that's well supported by the InBrace side, we can easily close a space because InBrace is able to control the torque from day 1. So I don't have to worry about having to upgrade the wires to rectangular wires to control the torque of the lower incisors. I don't have to worry about the roots getting pushed out, therefore leading to recession. Here we can control the torque, close the spaces. And I feel like for spacing cases, patient satisfaction from within about 3 to 4 weeks of starting treatment is amazing. And then these patients will start telling their friends and families about how amazing InBrace is. And I feel like that's something, spacing case is something that's really good for providers who are thinking about studying InBrace.
And then I know you have one more. I know you have to hop soon, so I'll go ahead and show this one.
Yes, so very similar spacing case, class 1. This is Ashley. She loves InBrace. She tells all the friends and families about InBrace. She also wanted to work with InBrace. So if she reaches out to you guys, she said she wanted to reach out to you guys. So she didn't like the spacing, and she wanted to do InBrace as her treatment modality because she was going to be in her friend's wedding in the upcoming months. So she decided to do InBrace, and she was very eager to get the treatment going. So she only had about 3 weeks between the upper and the lower arch bonding. So here, as you can see, we already have a great space closure for both top and the bottom. And here it only took her about 4 months to start seeing the space closure. So by this point, patient is extremely satisfied, and she's happy and she's now ready. She feels like she's confident. She can confidently smile in any of the wedding photos. She has been one of our happiest InBrace patients so far. This is her photos for her final visit. So we got her upper and the lower InBraces off. We decided to give a little more time for the puffy gums to subside before we placed upper lower permanent retainers here. And here she was happy with the finishing, and she even showed us all the wedding photos that she was at. And one thing that I took into consideration here when we were doing the smile design was to building in extra lingual root torques that could counter effect the any the root torque control of the upper incisors during the space closure process. So that's something that I feel like very important for all the space closure cases whenever we are retracting the upper 2-2 area.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Uni. Any questions from the field for Dr. Uni? All right, we'll give it one more second. Dr. Uni, you've done so many cases, you've seen so many cases, you're at AG Ortho, you guys are one of the biggest InBrace providers in the country. What is something that you would share to all the people that are not yet an InBrace provider, or people who are an existing provider, but still kind of taking their time and slowly building their trust and their confidence up? What advice would you give them?
The one advice, I guess, that that I could mention is don't give up. I feel like whenever we have a new treatment modality that is not as familiar with us because we didn't learn it in residency. I didn't learn InBrace when I was in residency. I started learning it like from 2020 when I got out of residency. And there were, again, sorry, Tara and Matt, there were times I wanted to give up. I didn't want to do it anymore. Just simply didn't have a choice as an associate doctor. Had to keep going. But the more we learn about it and the more we get our hands wet on it, our team members, they see how amazing it is. And also I think it's a great way of building a new practice location. I'm in our Columbia office today. It's our newest office so far. It's been open for about 2 years now. And we have a lot of InBrace patients, and I feel like if we didn't offer InBrace, I don't think we would be busy today. That's how I feel. It's a great patient referral source. And again, earlier, I think Dr. Chokshi mentioned too, all the other doctors mentioned earlier too, a lot of parents want this treatment modality. So this is a great, I feel like treatment modality to start building your office, to grow it, and also to get more word of mouth referrals into your office, as well as having patients being very satisfied with the treatment result. If you start with a little bit simpler cases, so until you feel more confident to move on to complex cases, like Dr. Horsey was saying, like, I mean, his cases looked amazing. So something to get to that level, we don't have to start there, but then just starting somewhere simpler, I think it'll also satisfy your things for the patients, and patients will also be happy with it.
Wonderful.
I don't know if I answered that question well, but
No, you did. I think a lot of the providers who came on today talked about, their early frustrations with Gen 1, but they stuck with it. And now they continue to get better and better and better. And they see even after doing 300 cases like Dr. Horsey, he's talking about how he's still learning and he's still seeing where he can even be more efficient, even though he's already pretty efficient with InBrace. He's seeing how he can even save more time and cut out even more visits. So that was, that's really the goal of this call. So before we let you go, we have one more question. When the diastema is bigger than 1 to 1.5 millimeters, do you build more than 3 degrees root tip overcorrection? And how do you decide how much to overcorrect the roots?
That's a great question because I learned this the hard way when IFS was not in place yet. So usually when we are dealing with 1 to 1.5 space closure, you're right in saying that I would consider building in 3 to 5 degrees of mesial root tip overcorrection, but also you have to be mindful about extra extrusion between the upper 1 to 1 so that you don't end up with the reverse smile arc when you are closing the upper diastema. But one great thing is that InBrace has started rolling out the IFS system where you don't have to really worry about this anymore, where you can just ask the technician to put the teeth to the right location where you want them, and then they will build in those extra overcorrection mechanisms so that you don't have to deal with unhappy patients who are not happy with the progress. But that is correct though. When you are dealing with the 1 to 1.5, I would think probably about 3 to 5 degrees. And then if you have more than that, probably about 7 degrees of mesial root tip extra overcorrection. But also you have to be mindful about what kind of smile arc that you already have starting the treatment. And also how much of a gummy smile or how much of a insufficient incisal display you have.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we look forward to hearing more from you on Thursday. Anyways, on behalf of InBrace and Dr. Tara, we thank everyone for being on the call today. As you guys heard, there's some great things going on with InBrace, but please do us a favor and don't make InBrace the best kept secret in orthodontics. Please help us grow InBrace Nation. Do what you can, post it on InGroup, encourage other providers that are InBrace providers. So when you have these great stories, please post it, please share about it, please tell your friends. And we really want to go out there and really, put this, early on, the founders of InBrace, they said it's made by orthodontists for orthodontists. And what is the point of having all this advanced technology if we can't make our profession better, if we can't save some time? So I hope you guys are all really encouraged today. I hope you guys all leave here today learning something new. But one of my asks is, please tell somebody all the good things that's happening, all the good things that you're seeing in your practice. We want to grow InBrace Nation. The more we grow InBrace Nation, the better and better we get. So again, without further ado, thank you guys so much for your time. I know we went over time today, but
And then Matt, we also have, oh, he just chatted. Dr. Vittori raised his hand, so I was gonna let him speak really quick if he
Sure.
had something. There you go.
all right. Well, we got the legend, Dr. Ron Redmond saying hello. Hello, Dr. Ron Redmond. No worries.
So, no
All right.
worries. He just said, great webinar. Thanks to all the presenters. So maybe that's what he wanted to say to you guys.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Vittori. Thanks for tuning in all the way from Hawaii. I know it's early for you, but thank you so much. Hope you're doing well. All right. Well, that's it. If you haven't, if you have time to join session 2 on Thursday, love to see you there. If you have a friend that's been talking to you about InBrace, asking about InBrace, please encourage them to join us on Thursday as well. It's not too late to register. Love to see you there and have a great day. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.